Good evening to all. Happy World and Job Day to all. This is very special evening for us. First of all, I would like to thank everyone who gave me the opportunity to welcome to all on this memorable occasion. I welcome our Honorable Principal, Srimati Sridevi Ma. On behalf of the school, I wishes on this day and welcome to all.
I'll be sharing the screen, okay?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. My name is Austin. I'm a classmate of Basil. So, so on the topic of ecological restoration, so for starters, I would like start off with something very basic, like why do we need ecological restoration? Like what need is there if an ecology is destroyed? Why do we need to restore it? Why can't we just leave it destroyed? So for starting off on that topic, basically you can go to the third slide. Yeah, so these are like two recent topics. Does anyone here know about the Great Barrier Reef? I'm assuming like one of you must have read about it somewhere. It's okay if you're not, like, put a yes or no or something. That's more than enough. Okay, so like I will assume that none of you know about the Great Barrier Reefs. The Great Barrier Reef is one of the largest coral formations. A coral is a form of marine organism. It's found very close to the beaches. So if you go to the shallow waters, as soon as you start going a little to the deeper waters, there are coral formations. So there are large colonies of these corals that form a reef. So they have a very important role in the wild. So the most primary role being the reefs are responsible for protecting quite a lot of fish species. So they act as homes for quite a lot of microorganisms, bacteria, algae of those sorts. At the same time, they're home to quite a lot of fishes also. So if any of you have seen the movie Finding Dory and those kind of movies, so they have quite a lot of fishes roaming around in these beautiful colored things. Those are forms of coral formations. So the coral formations have a role in protection for the fish species as well as us. When these hurricanes and typhoons come, the coral formations act a sort of barrier and prevent a huge amount of water from flowing onto the land. So that protects, that reduces the effect of floods. At the same time, if any of you have read the news, you must have, seen the oil refinery fire in Oman and Iran also recently. So it's in the next slide actually. So both of these fires are fires that occurred in oil refineries. Oil refineries are places where you purify crude oil to make petrol and diesel. So one of these caught fire and it's making a huge amount of damaging gases that are harmful for the environment and us. So in both of these cases, some form of ecological damage has occurred. Ecological damage means the area that they are present in has been damaged in some form. Vishal, could you go to the next slide? Yeah. So these were like two topics that maybe most of you could easily understand. So, as of recently, the ship burned, a cargo ship burned off of the coast of Sri Lanka. What happened is it caught fire and it had quite a lot of plastic materials on it, and it's spewing a huge amount of ash. And that ash is falling onto the beaches of the neighboring beaches, and it's causing quite a lot of birds to eat those ashes up. So the problem is the ash is not always completely burned. There are bits of plastic in them. Now, when the birds eat them up, thinking that they're small fishes that are coming ashore, coming onto the beach and with the water, they eat the small bits of plastic up, and it gets stuck in their body, inside there. And then at some point, some human being hunts these birds down, eats them. That pieces of plastic go into their body also. So it causes harm along a range of people. It's not just affecting the birds or just the fishes. At the same time, the fish is now they're afraid that the ship will start to, spew out the oil that it had, the fuel that it had, and that will cause a large amount of fishes to die also, causing a major amount of damage to the local area in the water within the sea. At the same time, this is actually what they're doing in Hawaii. So Hawaii is an island nation, and it's an island state in the United States. So fire ants, the Malayalam, the ones we call neer. Neer is a very invasive species, meaning when fire ants start to form colonies in a particular region, they wipe out all other organisms. They don't allow anyone to come into their territory. So it's a big problem for nations like Hawaii, where the fire ants are not native to Hawaii. They came from outside when people, go there as tourists or something. So one or two fire ants go into the luggage and they get there somehow. They breed there and then form huge colonies. So it's becoming a problem there because quite a lot of fire ants are killing out native bird species that live there, birds that are native to those regions. And because of that, the local ecosystem, the local biodiversity, the very small balance between different types of organisms there is being disrupted. So to kill them, the problem has become so bad that they're spraying birth control so that the new fire ants can't be formed. So it's that bad. So these are some of the reasons that, you need the damage that is being caused by them is irreparable. Once these things are done, you can't go back. The oil that's damaging the waters near Sri Lanka, once those waters are damaged, we can't fish in them. There won't be any fishes that we can fish out of them. There won't be any fish for us to eat. Once the fire ants wipe out Hawaii, Hawaii will go from the green, lush, beautiful island to a barren land, desert, brown. It will lose all its beauty. The Great Barrier Reef is being currently damaged because of climate change. It's every few degrees of heat that is increased. The Great Barrier Reef loses a major percentage of its whole landmass. The problem that it causes is that every time now that cyclone comes on to the Great Barrier Reef region, the amount of water that comes inland, meaning the amount of water that comes from the sea onto the land, and the more barrier reefs are lost, the more the amount of that water increases, killing more people with every increase in cycle. Okay, Vishal, could go to the next slide. So, what are the ways that we could restore that ecological balance that existed before we caused some form of damage? Vishal, next slide. Yeah. So these are two things that are very visually appealing. So these are called artificial reefs. So the first one you see, the brown colored one, is actually a form of artificial reef that's made out of a mud composite. So as you can see, the fishes like coming into them, they make their own houses in these artificial reefs. So it forms a sort of protection. At the same time, artificial reefs can also be formed from old ships and cement structures that can be put into water. The different types of organisms come, they make their houses on these things, and it's converted into a form of an artificial reef. So why is this helpful? So first off, it forms coral reefs, which is very helpful in itself. At the same time, it acts as a way of recycling many things. So when you have huge amounts of metals, like ships, for example, they're very hard to recycle. They're easy to make because you take time. It takes a lot of it takes a lot of material, a lot of metal, a lot of plastics, but you can build them over time. The recycling is not that easy. So how do you recycle them? You can do things like these. When you put them in water, you leave them for a few years, they make coral reefs and on their surface, and they act as homes for various varieties of fishes and marine organisms. So that's one way to restore marine biodiversity. Next slide. So I'm sure many of you might have heard his name. This guy is Yadav Payeng. So he's a Assamese man. He's from Assam. So he's famously known as the Forest Man of India, and he recently won a Padma Shri for it. So he's famous because the small region, if it's visible on the PPT, there's a small green sector mapped onto the map that's called the Molai Forest. So once upon a time, that whole area was barren. There were no trees there. It was a brown region because there were no trees there. And this guy single-handedly planted all those trees there and made a forest of his own. The Molai is his native name, so that's why it's called the Molai Forest. So it's so famous because when this guy made that forest, many animals that were not even seen there before, like rhinoceroses and native varieties of tigers, they came back to those regions to live there. So that's also one form of ecological restoration. You can afforest. Afforest means you can make new forests. These new forests act as homes for different types of animals and different types of organisms that brings about ecological balance in that area. Next slide. So this is called Arcata Marshland. It's a place in United States. So there, what happened is, many of you might be familiar with the problem of sewage. So we're all suffering from sewage. There's always that dirty water going from everywhere. Even in Kerala, there are many rivers and ponds that are staying stagnant. They don't move around because different varieties of algae and all are stuck into them, and the water is just rotting away, and it smells very bad. So the Arcata marshland was started as a method to clean out water that had some form of sewage or sediment in them. So sewages are basically everything that we throw into water's effluent. So, all the human waste, the plastics that we throw, they eventually become sewage. So the easiest way to clean them is you make artificial ponds. So on the extreme right, you could see large water bodies. So those are artificial ponds that are made. So the sewage water is collected there, and then that's at a higher ground. So that water flows through these small areas. You can see these bottom green colored areas. So these are marshlands. So they have very little amount of water compared to the watery area. And when the water flows through them, these plants, they take up all the bad things in the water, and the water that comes out is almost as clean that it's drinkable. So towards the centrish left, you could see a small bluish reservoir kind of thing. So that's where the water is collected, and then it's like filtered out onto the by filtering plants, sewage water treatment plants on the top left, and then supply to the natives there that can use them. So that's also one way of clearing out contaminated water. Contaminated water meaning that has some form of pollutant, some bad thing in them that has made that water unusable. Okay, next slide. Next slide. So another common method of ecological restoration or ecological saving is making of zoos. So zoos in a way act as zoos and sanctuaries in a way act as a way of saving our environment. So when you have when you have animals that can't survive on their own in the wild, you can bring them into zoos. So hippos are famous for this because quite a lot of variety species of hippos, they couldn't survive in the wild because they were being killed by other animals before they could make babies, and that was causing their numbers to fall down very rapidly. So we brought them into artificial zoos, gave them space to make more rhinos and make more hippos, and that increased their population again. So this allowed us to save a lot of native hippo, Indian hippo species also. The same was done for Asiatic lions also. So those are common examples. Yeah, that's about it for me. I think Ria will be taking over now.
Hello everyone, so I am Ria. Thank you for this opportunity from everyone so I can speak on Environment Day. So I'll start. So today we are gathered here as every year on 5th June we celebrate World Environment Day. This was an initiative organized by the United Nations to make people aware and encourage them to protect the environment. The first World Environment Day was celebrated on June 5th, 1974. So can you tell me what was the main problems addressed? If you can write on the chat, please write, or you can unmute and say what are main things which pollute the environment.
Industrialization.
Yes. So during this World Environment Day, we address the air pollution, deforestation activities, plastic pollution, rapid melting of glaciers, icebergs and all. Anything which affects the earth in any way. Every year, 143 countries participate in this initiative. So the main theme of this initiative is to make people aware that there is only one earth and we need to conserve and take care of it. Next slide. Yeah. In 1987, the United Nations thought of rotating the host countries every year to conduct the activities. So this year, Pakistan has been chosen as the host country, and the topic this year we are focusing on is ecosystem restoration. So next slide, basically. So what do we actually mean by ecosystem restoration? It simply means that we need to assist in recovering the lost ecosystem and to conserve the remaining ecosystem around us. Okay. So ecosystems such as wetlands, forests, oceans needs to be restored. So we need to keep in mind the 3 R's. Next slide, Basil. The 3 R's are reimagine, recreate, and restore. Okay, next slide. Yeah. Ecosystems which have been destroyed due to human greed have been restored, has to be restored to create a balance in the environment. The materials which we obtain from environment are continuously being depleted due to a human greed. So there will be a point where there are no resources which will be left on this planet. So we need to restore our ecosystem. So in future the nature doesn't destroy us. Next slide, please.
Excuse me, students, please mute yourself. I'm sorry for the disturbance. Okay.
It's right. Next slide. One of the major effects of this ecosystem, the depleting ecosystem, is global warming. Global warming, as we can see, can lead to various severe weather conditions, which can cause various disasters like heat waves and droughts. Some wildlife can even go to extinction due to global warming. There is high rate of high sea levels, and polluted air also due to these ecosystem disturbances. Next slide. Yeah, next slide. Next slide, basic. So what can we all do in a small way to restore our ecosystem? In a small way, we can plant some plants in our house, or simple ways by conserving water in daily use, or stop bursting firecrackers. These are the small steps we can take, and this can lead to a big difference in our environment. Next slide. So we should always keep in mind that every day is Environment Day. We need to protect our environment, because the more we invest in our environment, the more we invest for a brighter and safer future. So happy Environment Day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Students, if you have any doubts, you can ask to ma'am, okay? Okay, I think there are no questions. So let me invite Rajda Miss for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Basil. An opportunity to have this science club, all the clubs and our school. I would like to express a sincere gratitude to Austin Varughese and Ms. Ria for such a wonderful session on this environmental. Thank you, both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for conducting this webinar in a short time. And we really apologize for the disturbance caused in the meeting. Students, from now on, please make sure that you're muted while you're attending the seminar. Okay. Thank you once again. Bye.